think that you don't want to
Right.
acknowledge their child. Just
Yeah,
because they're gone doesn't
exactly.
mean you don't still love
Right.
them or have good
Right.
memories.
And you want to say, oh, my son did that too.
Yeah, you want to
Oh,
join
that's
in.
exactly like my son.
Welcome to another episode of Hydrated Mind and Soul. I am so happy you're here. I'm Dr. Amanda Hackford, and I have a guest with me, Ellie Riga. I'll let her introduce herself to you. But today's show I have titled Beyond Goodbye, Surviving a Suicide Loss. And so it's a very sensitive show today, a sensitive topic. And I will welcome you and let you introduce yourself, who you are.
Yeah, I'm Ellie Riga. And well, my story started back in August of 1980.
Okay.
I got a phone call from Colombia, South America,
Okay.
Bogota, Colombia, from an orphanage. And they said a little girl was just born, a foundling, and did I want to adopt her?
Oh,
And
okay.
and 2 years later, I went back to Colombia and got my son Kenny.
Okay.
And that was my family. My family started, and they came into a very large, very close-knit family. They were 2 of 10 cousins.
Okay.
We had, we spent all of our vacations together and holidays together. And, it was a wonderful time. My children went to the same school that I went to, that my
Oh,
parents
nice.
went to. So
Yeah.
everything was beautiful. I guess about 14 years ago, I have my second husband, who my
Mhm.
children love. They
Mhm.
my son very close to him because they're hunting and fishing.
Yeah.
And we moved to Florida.
Okay.
And my son doesn't like to fly, but on his 31st birthday, his sister Christy said to him, "We're going to go visit mom and dad for your
Okay.
birthday. I'll take you on the airplane." And they came. And we had the most wonderful week. He
Nice.
fished every day with my husband. It was just wonderful.
Yeah.
We partied, and he went home and he hugged me because he doesn't like to fly. And he hugged me and he said, "Mom, this is the start of something big." And
Okay.
1 week to the day later, I was teaching in a classroom and I got a phone call from my brother, who's a police officer.
Okay.
And he said to me, "Are you sitting down?" And I said, "Why?" And he said to me, "Because Kenny's dead. He killed himself." Just like that. Just like that. My whole world
Yeah.
changed and it ended.
Mhm.
And for whatever reason, he got a shotgun and he went into his garage and he put the shotgun in his mouth and he ended his life. And, that's something that I will never understand,
No.
of course,
No.
until I myself go to heaven,
Yes.
But
I'm so
but my
sorry.
life ended and I was just reeling. And, I don't know what the statistics are. I think
have some for
that
you.
well,
That's-
okay, tell me then.
We will. I
Suicide.
will tell.
Yeah,
I'll let you
okay,
know
yeah.
some. I don't have. I always have a few. I'm like a
Right.
real
I
big
know. I
statistic.
believe it's the 10th most common cause of death in the United States, or
So
something like
it's
that.
actually I wrote these down, so it's funny. We have every year we have 7. This is estimated because, of course, give or
Yeah,
take a
of
few,
course.
but we have 727,000 people who die by suicide. And then we kind of narrow it down to youth. And for youth, which when I say youth, it's 15 to 29. They consider in your 20s the youth, as far as the largest number occurs from age 15 to 29. And it's the third cause of death
Wow.
in that age group.
Wow.
That's big. And that
Yes.
gives me the so that's a large number, especially for our youth, which should really be alarming and let us hone in on that more if you hear that
Right.
number.
Yeah, and there are, thank God, there and getting to be more intervention
Mhm.
groups, and actually prevention groups,
Yes.
and then intervention groups, the police, we have in our county victims advocate,
Yes.
so they go on, so
Right.
so there's good intervention as well, but postvention, I didn't coin that term, but there isn't a lot of postvention.
Right.
And
After, what do we
yet,
do?
I only know from personal experience, for every suicide, there are countless amount of people whose lives are touched or
Yeah.
destroyed or completely changed.
And it's a tough one because it's a lot different from any other loss.
Right.
So every loss is hard, all
Right.
grief is hard, but when you bring in the suicide factor for the ones that they've left behind here still,
Right.
there's a lot of questions and you're
Yes.
left with the why and
Right.
you don't understand. So, when
Right.
somebody's sick, you know why. Oh, but
Right.
they had cancer, okay,
Right.
or a heart attack, you
Right.
know why.
Right.
So you have the answer. It's
Right.
still sad, it's still hard, but you
Right.
have that why
Right.
answered. And I think where the overwhelming amount of grief and that exceeds those other losses is from the questions people have and not understanding and how it the difference. And also the other thing that I find with many people that I speak to is there's a lot of blame um
Yes.
for those that are left behind, loved
Right.
ones, friends or close family.
Right.
There's a lot of they blame themselves
Right.
sometimes, and there's a lot of guilt for not knowing why.
Right.
Well, why did this happen? Why did I not see it
Right.
coming? Things like that. So they get stuck
Right.
in that, like, I should have done something. I should have seen the
Absolutely.
signs.
Right.
And that's the part that we really have to navigate out of because it's
Right.
not their fault. And
It
sometimes you
isn't.
don't
No.
see signs and they're
Right.
not there. Actually, quite often with people who commit suicide, they don't show the typical
No,
signs you
they
would think.
don't. In fact,
It's the
they
opposite.
have the opposite
Yes.
because they've made a plan
Hmm.
and they're better than ever. But that why is one of the topics I wanted to bring up. Not just for me. I had to ask that question why, but people seem to have an innate need to know why
Hmm.
someone died. And like you said, with a disease, we know why, or an accident, we know why. Suicide, we don't know why. So people come up with their own answers.
Right.
And it's just amazing the responses that someone I will get. As a matter of fact, I told you my family is close knit. My brother and his 3 children, we were just very, very close
Mhm.
as a family. When my son took his life 11 years ago, they never spoke to me again.
Wow.
And it was
Okay.
a loss as almost as terrible
Yeah. Now
as
you
my
have
son's loss.
more loss.
And, I hear that in my group all the time is people want to know why. So they look at the family. Well, she's the mother.
It's her
He
fault.
was just with her for a week.
week.
And, I was one of those mothers. I was a fun mom. I just like to have fun,
Yeah.
and my siblings were very strict with their children. So, it's like she was very liberal with her
Yeah.
children.
Right.
And, so you get a lot of
Blame from
blame
others.
from others and then awful responses. I went back to work and somebody said, well, he was just being very selfish. And, so that, the stigma. And then, of course, we had the last picture we took of him. It was the day before he left. And I, for the longest time, would blow that picture up and
Mhm.
just look at his eyes and look at them
Yeah.
and think, what did I miss in
Yeah.
there? I mean,
And that's what
a
I'm
week
saying. People
later,
do
he's
that.
gone.
Yeah.
Like, how could he be smiling like that?
And you said your group. So others out here listening or watching may not
Right.
know you have a
Well,
grief support
right.
group that you do.
That's right.
So tell me about that.
About 2 years after my son passed away,
Mhm.
I remember saying to my sister-in-law, Kenny's life had a lot of meaning, but
Mhm.
his death is meaningless, and I have to make meaning out of it somehow, and
Very
I
good.
will. And when I can, I will someday, help other people. I will reach
Right.
out and help other people. And I would say about 8 years now,
Mhm.
I have a suicide grief group that meets at
Excellent.
my house on alternating Saturdays. It used to meet in my classroom when I taught
Okay.
at the middle school, and there were 32 people in the group, believe it or not. But
Yeah.
then COVID came,
Oh,
and of course
yes.
there was
Okay.
nobody. And now it never quite picked up like that again. Now I have between 10 and 15
Okay.
people, sometimes only 5 people. And, and it's a place where you can go and you can, it's, if you look at my site, we have ground rules. And the rules, it's a listening group. We don't advise. We don't come up with topics. We don't, we go with the inner teacher,
Just listening and
just
being
listening
there.
and letting witness, your grief has to be witnessed,
And it's other people that have been through that same
Exactly.
thing. So, which makes a big
Exactly.
difference than
Yes.
talking to somebody who
Yes.
we can say, oh, yeah, but we don't understand anything that
Right.
each of us has been through, no matter what it is. We don't really understand unless it's something
Right.
we've been through, which
Correct.
is who we help the most.
Right.
Is the other people that have the same thing that we've
Right.
been through ourselves. So I think that's really important what you're doing. It's
Right.
amazing and good that you're
Yeah.
doing that. 'Cause
And
you've
one of
turned
my
it into
main
a
rules
purpose.
is I don't talk. you know?
Just listen, yeah,
I just listen.
to them. That's nice.
You know,
I
when
think it's
people will
good.
come and they'll say, well, I'm not going to share. And I'll say, well, that's fine. You certainly don't
Yeah,
have to. But then they do because they hear other people share things
yeah.
that,
They
you
feel
know,
more comfortable once they
yes,
see the people there are
right,
just listening and not
right,
judging and not telling them the things that, like, they probably hear from
right,
other people like you did.
right,
So they realize, "Oh, this is a safe space. I feel."
right,
They open up. They feel comfortable. Voice
right,
should tell you how comfortable they feel,
right.
which is amazing.
And it
And
just,
they need that.
yeah.
Everybody needs to be able to have somewhere
Yeah,
to go to
right.
do
It,
that.
it it's just wonderful, and I try to get the word out. The victims advocate group, with the sheriff's office does tell people, but when they tell them, it's a time of great trauma,
Yeah,
and so they
they're
don't
not ready for
usually.
that
Yeah,
yet.
they're not ready for that. But
Still
s-
processing that.
yes,
So that's something to get out for everyone. I mean, here it's just local because you're at your home,
hmm
but anywhere someone may be hearing or listening, normally, yes, your sheriff's department has a victims advocate
right,
that you can go to years down the road and ask, is
right,
there support groups for
right,
anything that happens,
right.
just suicide
Yes,
or any type of
right,
crime, an
hmm
overdose, anything that you've dealt with
right,
personally, normally if in your area they have resources to say, hey, we have this in our
right,
county. So that's a good thing to keep in mind for people that
right,
are listening. And I think another important thing too during grief is knowing the difference between solitude and isolation.
hmm
They're really important.
right,
Isolation is you watch out for. You're isolating
hmm
yourself. That's different than solitude. Solitude is like I need to be by myself. I need
right,
to reflect. I need to have time to take care of myself, or cry or
hmm
scream or you just sit or whatever it is. Pray, read. But isolation is not I'm going in solitude to help myself heal. It's I'm just gonna pull away, stay stuck in that spot. And so there's a fine line between the two. It's really important for people to know the difference so they can recognize when it's happening
right,
and know, like, let me not
right,
isolate myself. I can have
right.
solitude, but I don't want to isolate myself. I need others. I need to
Right.
talk or need to listen and things like that. Once the initial, I mean, it never goes away. I don't
No.
ever want to say that for any kind of grief. Different days or every day is different as
Mhm.
time goes on. Some days maybe you reflect and it's a happy memory and you're smiling because it was a nice thing. And
Right.
then one day you hear a song and you
Right.
lose it or whatever it may
Right.
be. So it doesn't ever go away because I hate when people say, "Oh, time will heal." No,
No, it
that's
never
not true.
does. Right.
So yes, it'll get a little less frequent. You get better at doing your day to day life because you do go on. You're still
Right.
here, but it never goes away. And I hate when
Right.
people say that because they're giving
Right.
people false expectations during
Right.
their initial shock and time of grief.
Right.
So that's one, and I don't know what obviously you guys, kind of you say listen. I'm sure other people have their, different things when they're speaking that they feel are important or not important that have helped them or do not help them at all from others, that are
Mhm.
talking to them.
Right.
And sometimes they may be talking to them thinking they're helping. They just don't
Right. Right.
understand. So
And
they
we have
think they're
right.
helping
We have
and
to
then
be
it's hurtful
mindful. Right.
because they're not being,
Right.
considerate of like really thinking before they speak.
Right.
And that's a very sensitive
Mhm.
topic and a very touchy topic.
Right.
So sometimes people just like they have no idea what to say and they go away, like you
Right.
said. So that's a
Yes.
common one I
Right.
hear is
Yes.
that, my son or my daughter who passed away in general, not even suicide, and
Right.
never
People.
friends are
Right.
gone.
Right.
And I think it's one of their ways of like they have no idea what to say around the person. They feel
Exactly.
uncomfortable around the person. They
Right.
don't want to hurt them. They
And
don't,
I
and they just
understand. Right.
fall out. And so
Right.
when you said that, that just hit even the nail on the head even more for me that it's very common for a lot of people to
It
scatter.
is. Yes, it is. Otherwise, support systems. Also, with isolation, I felt guilty about going out and doing anything. For 2 years, I would not go anywhere
Mm-hmm.
except to work because I thought, how could I laugh?
Yeah.
How could I enjoy myself? So, one of the things I do on the weeks, it's alternating weeks, we have the group, alternating weeks, we do something fun. And it's right
Okay.
in the website, it's under events. We
Okay.
go out to lunch together because I want people to know you can laugh,
Yes.
and there are people that won't come to the group, but they'll come to that, and that's okay.
That's good. Yeah.
And we
And
don't even talk about, but
no,
we all know that. we all have that hole in our heart.
Yes, but that's it. That's an amazing thing too, to get
Right.
people to know that, because that is really true. That
Yes.
you reflect and you think, I can't smile or be happy because, then what do I look like? People think I didn't care about my son.
Right.
People
Or I'll
think, how
think
could
I
I move on
didn't.
so fast? Or all
Ugh.
these things that go through your mind that Satan loves to put things in
Oh,
our mind. And if we
absolutely.
listen to him,
Right.
we have ourself that tells us bad things too.
Right.
Then we
Well,
have
that's
him that,
Satan is talking to us and we
yes,
believe him.
and so then he just hones in on, oh, let me
Right.
hound that one in
Oh,
there so that it
right.
can stick. But we have to realize, that he's a liar. And, it's hard sometimes to get to that point, and everybody timeline is different too, which is another thing I think is important, that grief is a process that is different for every single person. So even people together being through the same
Mm-hmm.
thing, one person might be getting along a little faster than the other
Right.
person, and that's okay.
Right.
That is okay. Like, everybody grieves in their own way,
Right.
as long as they're noticing, like you said, they're noticing and getting on a little more, like, yes,
Right.
okay, I can go to lunch, and they
Right.
slowly are making their
Right.
way to where they're not holding themselves
Right.
down and feeling the guilt and the shame and the things
Right.
that are lies
Mm-hmm.
that have been told to them, or they're listening to,
Right.
from other people, or
Right.
the enemy, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
the case may be.
Well, my relationship with God probably changed the most because, I believed in God, but I was like, you know what, God, we're kind of done talking.
Right.
It's like, and then, I had this wonderful. I went to a therapist, and he's a Christian therapist, and I went to him because I wanted to tell him what I thought about his Bible,
Right.
you know, and where it says in the Bible that, look, I am making a new thing, and I was like,
Yes.
well, where was that with my son,
Right.
and that is all BS. And
Yeah.
for 2 years, I wouldn't go to church, I wouldn't pray, but I have the most patient, loving husband, and he went to
Good.
church and he would pray for me. And I've come to understand that God was with me all the time. God didn't cause that. God gives
Yeah.
us free will. This
Exactly.
world
Yes.
is responsible for that, but God was crying with me
Hmm.
the whole time and comforting me
And he
the whole
collects every
time.
one of your tears.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and I feel like that was really important for people to hear, because most often when something bad, terrible happens, we're like, yeah, see, look,
Well, that
there's no
was
God. He
me
would not
too.
allow this
It's
to
right.
happen.
Right.
And
What kind of God
no
is
matter,
that?
exactly, like, why would my daughter is 4, like, why would she drown? All these things. It doesn't even have to be suicide. And if you and that's justifiable to think, that's like, what the heck, this God, this
Right.
loving God, why would he
Right.
allow this to happen?
Right.
Well, there's several reasons why, or we never know why, but quite often situations like this bring other people understanding, strength, power. Then again, it could not be any of that. And it could be that it's the free will of whatever person, like, he's there, he's trying, but that
Mm-hmm.
person doesn't let him in. And so he's, you know, has to just, but the Bible never says that we're not going to have tragedy. It never
Well,
says we don't have
right.
trials. It just says he's there
Right.
with us through
Right.
them
And I
while we're
now
here.
I know that.
And so it's very hard, because you're like, what in the
Yeah.
world?
Took two
This is loving.
years.
What is this?
Yeah.
Like, this isn't like a loving God. But if you really dive and delve into the word, you realize that, okay, he never says any of that.
Right.
So it's important for people to hear that too, so that they don't fall away. And if they do, that's okay too, because most often they come back. Because
Right.
when you do have tragedy, whatever the tragedy may be, you really truly don't ever, at least in my experiences and what I feel, and people that I've seen and helped and talked to, the only people that find true peace again are the people that have built a relationship with God
Oh, I
after,
don't
or
know.
went back to it.
Right.
And so seeing that is what has, like, validated to me over and over
Right.
that, okay, like, this is definitely real. Because how can these people, really seeing others, like, yeah, I have my own personal relationship, but seeing other people that have been through terrible,
Yes.
horrible things say,
Right.
this is the only thing that grounded me. This is the only,
Right.
when I finally got this, like, it doesn't go away. I'm not
Right.
saying, oh, it goes away and I never think
Right.
about it, but having a peace through it that is
Right.
different
Mm-hmm.
is what I'm like, okay, you can't tell me anything different, because what else
Right.
would do that?
Right.
But you have to give yourself permission to grieve
Yes, you
as well.
do. Yes, you do, and the group helps with that. Wh Shortly after my son died, I was at the Catholic Church for something else with a friend of mine,
Mhm.
and I was just crying my eyes out because Catholic churches are so, with the hymns and everything, and I was crying my eyes out, and at the end, as the priest walks back down the aisle, he looked at me, saw me crying, and he stopped his procession, and he came in the pew, and he said to me, "Why are you crying?" And I said, "Because my son died." And he said, "Well, how did he die?" And I said, "He took his own life." And he took my hand and he said, "Do you know Jesus was there?"
Mhm.
And Jesus told him, "Come home, son."
Okay.
And he is sitting with Jesus right now. I can't tell
That's the
you
best thing you probably have
what
ever
that meant to me
Yes.
in a Catholic church.
Mhm.
It was just a beautiful thing. So now, when I have my group, I always put extra chairs, one for Jesus, one
Nice.
for Kenny. Well,
Yeah.
sometimes people come and sit in them, and I'm like, "You guys are on your own."
Yeah. That's nice. I love it. That's good.
Yeah.
That's exciting. I just love what you're doing, because if in the therapy realm and in the industry that I'm in, storytelling is one of the number one things that actually helps heal. So
Yes.
storytelling, meaning sharing your story, not
Exactly.
making up
Right.
a story in a book,
Right.
but like
Right.
sharing your story is what we call storytelling. And it helps heal. And it also helps to break negative stigmas when you storytell and share stories, because there's
Yes.
is a negative stigma with just about everything in the mental
Right.
health industry, whatever that may be, whether it's grief, whether it's
Right.
therapy itself. And there's so much that surrounds it in a negative aspect, that support groups and crisis resources and storytelling are such a big factor in getting
Mhm.
to healing, because most people don't really, you know, they don't really believe the things they hear until they hear somebody's real
Yes,
story.
and see their faces and see
Mhm.
that they're real and
Yeah.
that they're telling a real
Like, oh,
story.
like this helped
Yes.
them. Like, this is
Right.
real, not just what they hear. Like, I could tell them
Right.
all day long, hey, go to a sport event. Like, nah,
Mhm.
she didn't have that happen. She doesn't know. And I
Right.
don't.
Right.
But when you hear other people, you're like, oh, okay, wow. Let
Right.
me try that if that helped them, because they did go through it
Right.
and they know
Right.
it's a real
Right.
person, really happened. And then they see the difference and say,
Right.
I need that. I want that. I want to
Right.
feel, better. I want to see, or just curiosity in general of someone else
Mhm.
that's been through it. The curiosity may peak and bring them there, but then they stay because they
Right.
realize what it's like and how,
Right.
it feels. So it's, I think important to shift to a focus at some point. Obviously, you give yourself time and permission, and sometimes you fall and you get back up all throughout the rest of your life until you go home to see the Lord. But make sure your focus tends to shift when it does become negative or down, which
Yes.
happens, that
Yes.
you become conscious and aware of when it happens, to shift your focus to
Yes.
hope, or shift your focus
Right.
to healing, or to
Right.
connection, or finding a purpose, like what
Right.
you did. You started
Finding
this group
meaning.
and that
Yes.
put meaning to the death and
Right.
purpose to it. And now you're helping. So
Right.
focusing and shifting that focus to something like that,
Right.
I
And
think
it doesn't have to
does.
be a group.
No, it doesn't.
It could just
Anything.
be living a more compassionate life. I found that I became a more compassionate person. I also became a less tolerant person in a way
Mhm.
because I can't deal with drama anymore and I
Right.
can't deal with falsehoods anymore. I
Yeah.
can't even be polite around it. I just need to not have it in my life.
Right.
The one thing that I try to get across to everybody, though, is the tragedy never goes away.
No.
The trauma never goes away, but your heart and your life grow bigger,
Yeah.
and they can fit then in joy and peace and happiness and love.
Very nice.
And that was important to me because I didn't want the grief to go away because that's my relationship with him.
Mhm.
You
Yeah,
know.
you feel, or and in general, like the people I've lost, it wasn't suicide, but I feel like if you don't, if I'm not grieving, then I forgot about them, or I
Yeah.
don't care
Right.
anymore. And I've had that. I've like been
Right.
like, wait, I haven't cried in however many days. Like, oh my
Right.
gosh, you don't care, or
Right.
and I've
Which
done
is
that to
so
myself.
untrue.
And it's like, no,
No.
but that's when I say those kind of
Right.
negative things come in, you're like, okay, wait, hold on. Now I'm like,
Right.
no. I
right,
loved him. He knew he loved me. Like, and have to like stop and
right,
talk to myself with my
right,
own voice and with the
right,
Holy Spirit rather than letting that
right,
negativity like sink in.
right,
Yes, it comes, but I have to say, okay, no, we're
right,
not going to do that,
right.
because it'll just spiral down if you allow it to.
Right.
And
And
so
and
that's hard.
and it's, not just grieving shows that I honor him. I put a Christmas tree out on my dock so that he can see it from heaven. And
Nice.
it's his Christmas tree. So,
Yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah,
that's the
little
way
thing,
I
all
honor
that
him
little
too.
I love it. No, all those little things are so important.
Right.
You're honoring him, you're remembering, and it's like a happy grief in some
Right.
instances, like having the chair and the Christmas tree. It's
Right.
it's a good grief. Not that
Right,
grief is
exactly.
good, but
Right.
it's not the consistent bawling and crying. It's now you're like remembering the happy times and the good
Right,
memories and the things
exactly,
that
and
you
making
want.
new happy times.
Yes.
His first birthday, I took my pastor and his 4 children out for pizza because
Okay.
that's what I would have done with
With him.
Kenny,
Okay.
and we just had a ball, and the kids, of course, didn't know why we were there, but, and it was just so wonderful, I wept with joy
Oh,
afterwards to see
good.
these children having a good
Yes.
time.
And I have a question for you because I hear the same answer from many people. So just out of, to see what yours is. But I have parents who have lost a child, regardless of how, tend to, one of the things they say is they actually want people to talk about their child
Oh,
and they notice. And so I
yes.
want to ask you, they've noticed that when they're around other people, most people will start to talk about their child or something and they'll stop, or
Right.
they won't bring their child because they're
Yes.
like on eggshells and tipping around.
Yes.
And what I've heard from other survivors of, that have lost a child have said, it makes me feel worse. Like I want the
Oh.
opposite. I want to hear about their kids. I want them to say, "Hey, it was
Absolutely.
Kenny's birthday today.
Yes.
Happy heavenly birthday."
Right.
And almost probably 99.9% say that people don't do that, and then
Right.
they tend to isolate
Right.
because they're like, nobody wants to talk
Well,
to
and
me, and
that's
still my
yeah.
son or daughter.
Right. That's the case with my brother.
Okay.
I think they didn't know what to say. I really believe that. And then as time went on, I guess it gets harder and harder to
Mhm.
break the ice. But I love hearing about other people's
Okay.
children. And now they believe me. I have a couple of young friends with young children, and they'll share me pictures and I'll be like, that was exactly the way my son was. He was just
Okay.
he was such a little daredevil,
Yes. Okay.
and so it's a wonderful, wonderful thing.
See, so I
I
hear
I
the
would
same. It's
love
consistent.
every story about him.
Okay. Yeah, see that, so
Yeah.
it's consistent. That's why I like to ask. The
And you're
more
right,
people that give
people
me the same
don't.
answer.
They don't. And
S-
they will, my own sister, she has 4 very successful children, and I could tell that she hesitates to brag about them. It's like, brag away. I love
Yeah.
them too.
Yeah, exactly. So good. So I hear this, and I'm asking so that others watching and listening
Yes.
hear from someone who's
Yes.
lost a child. Like this
Right.
is what
Talk about
I
the
want.
child,
Like
right? Talk about your
yeah,
child, talk about their child.
yes.
You could even say something like, "Oh, what were your, Christmas is like." In fact, the last meeting we had, on the invitation I sent out, bring a picture and a fun memory.
Oh, nice.
And
Okay.
everybody went around showing the picture with a fun
Okay.
memory, and
Good.
that's what we want.
Yeah, to
I
keep the
want people
memory.
to look at. My whole house is just photographs of people I love, including my son, and I want people to ask,
Yeah.
"Oh, that's so cute. What picture
What
is
were they
that?"
doing? And I really wanted to get that out. I wanted your answer first so that I didn't, because I never know if somebody feels differently than someone else.
Right.
But I really wanted to get that out, and I was pretty sure you were going to say that because everybody's answered me the same way, but wasn't sure. And so that's something that seems so important to others that have
Right.
lost. So I really want people to know that it's okay if you're around somebody that has lost a child, or even suicide or any type of loss. Like
Right.
they want to honor their child, they want to remember
Right.
their child, and
Right.
when you do that, they think that you don't want to
Right.
acknowledge their child. Just
Yeah.
because they're gone doesn't
Exactly.
mean you don't still love
Right.
them or have good
Right,
memories.
and you wanna say, "Oh, my son did that too."
Yeah, you want to
"Oh,
join
that's
them.
exactly like my son,"
Yeah, good. So I hope people
Yeah,
can
that's
kind of get to that. And
yeah.
one of the other things that I And you can step in anytime when I'm talking because you're more knowledgeable than me. I may have a degree, but I don't have the experience. And I think life experience is far greater than any degree can give you. So for me, I do think though that I want people to really know that most often, very high, again, statistics, because I like research, um, people who commit suicide do not show many signs.
Oh,
Quite
no.
often, I want listeners and viewers to
Mhm.
know, again, to reiterate, it's not your fault. You
Mhm.
would not have
No.
known. You couldn't have, unless they
No.
did a letter or so, but prior to that,
Mhm.
some of the pretty much almost any that I've had direct contact with have not had any signs. It was the
No.
complete opposite. They were happier. They
Exactly.
were laughing. They were like the
Right.
party person that everybody thought was
Right.
fun and up and to. Like, it wasn't
Right.
like this, it was like it's a sudden, like,
Right.
"What?" Everybody's like,
Right.
"Wait, I just saw him. He was
Right.
happy," or, "Hey, I just seen him. He was
Right.
at the club," or
Right.
whatever, it was. And so it's a shocker.
Right.
And people assume that this person is gonna be the depressed person that's not
Right.
coming out, that's
Right.
isolating themselves, or
Right.
whatever the case they picture the stigma, and it's not true.
Right.
It
It's
can
not.
be. I mean, there
Right.
obviously can be somebody who's depressed
Right.
and it happened, but quite often it's not.
No, at my son's, funeral, I guess, one of his friends got up and he said, Kenny, we every one of us has cried on Kenny's shoulder.
Mm,
Kenny has never cried on ours," he said, "and none of us noticed it. None of us noticed that that was missing." He said, and he looked out and he said, "Friends, we have to start knowing each other better.
mhm.
We have to start asking questions."
Yeah.
And people were surprised.
So quite often, and that's you've got your warning signs and your risk factors and all these things that are great to know and have out and textbook wise, but when you look at those, sometimes you're like, when you look around and you hear other people's real
Right.
stories, you're like, does it fit? Because the textbook, I can give you what the textbook says. This is what I learned, and does it fit? Yes, but not until something happens do you look back and reflect and say,
Yes.
it's not my fault. I
Right.
had no idea. But you notice some of those little, that's the
Right.
ones that I like to bring up, not like the textbook saying like, and this is, I wrote to remember because I thought it was important, but the textbook warning signs of like, a big major life change.
Right.
Okay, yeah, like, a divorce, a death, or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
and then somebody does it. But most of the time, exactly what you said is that the people we think are the strongest, the people that
Yes.
everybody's bringing
Right.
their problems
Right.
to, everybody's going for advice, constant, don't realize the weight that is put on
Right.
them, and they think they're strong. Like,
Right.
oh, I'm going to help them. I'm the helper. Oh, yep, I'll console them. And they take that on and don't realize internally what weight it's putting on them
Mhm.
because they're not doing it.
Right.
And that's exactly what I had written, is what you're saying about everybody going and crying on Kenny's shoulder.
Right.
Very often is what I hear, the same thing. That
Mm.
strong one, like the saying or motto you see a lot, which I feel is so true, is that it's, and I could be butchering it, but it says something about, go check on your strong friends. They're the one that, it says something like,
Right.
go check on your strong friends. They're the
Right.
ones that don't show
Right.
their sadness,
Mhm.
or, your friends or family that are almost too happy, because
Right.
often right prior to a suicide, yes, that person never really outwardly showed a lot of signs. They were what people would say, like the life of the party and the
Right.
jokester and
Yeah.
whatever. But prior to, there's like this uplift,
Well, that
especially if
was
they're
yes.
planning.
Right.
Some is planned for a while,
Right.
some aren't, and there's different. I mean, you could go into
Right.
all that. That's a whole nother show of the stages. But most often the happiest, there's an uplift because they
Right.
plan this and they are,
Right.
to them, it truly is, they're seeking relief.
Right.
Like, I'm going to be great after this. Like,
Right.
I'm leaving. I
Right.
don't have to deal with any of
Right.
this anymore. The weight of the
Mhm.
world's too heavy. And so they get in this happy kind of
Right.
euphoria. Like, it's so
Yes.
nice. I'm going to see family members. I'm going
Right.
to hug everybody. I'm not going to tell them because, again,
Right.
they're the helper. They don't want to put that on you. They're not going to
Right.
tell you they're doing
Right.
that because they don't want to see you
Yeah,
hurt.
and I know that's what my son I know that he was saying goodbye to us,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that, and he was joyful and, you
And
know.
and it's scary. Like, oh, okay, this is why do I do this on the show? Okay. I did this only a couple times on the show, but not that long of a pause. Okay. Um, you should, I should be the one crying. Okay, so let's go back to when you have someone very close that you love that goes through attempted suicide, um,
Mm,
more than once, or it it's this constant in the back of your mind fear of, are they really better?
right,
Like, they went to therapy and they're kind of
right,
happier, and then you're
right,
think, oh, wait a minute, they're happy. Wait, no, and you have all
right,
this knowledge. Like,
right,
I feel like I have a lot of knowledge. I know there's way more I need to learn,
right,
but knowing the, in what I do, like, so it's a constant battle of, oh, wait a minute, no, he's too happy, or,
right,
oh, okay, wait, no, therapy's working, so that's why he's happy, or, then you see a day where he's down. It's just a
right,
normal day. Like, we
right,
all do it, but when
yes,
that's happened a few
right,
times, it's over focused on it, or I over focus on it because I am like, oh gosh, it was just a bad day. But again, it's a Satan, knowing that
right,
that's gonna really get you. So, trying to trip you up or me up. And so it's almost a daily, like, battle of, he's happy, but oh wait, does that mean? Or, he looks really upset today. Hey, you okay? What's going on? And it's like this shift of, like, back and forth of when it's
right,
been
right,
attempted, and two occasions, and then we're in a depression state and get somebody help, and it's just like a
right,
battle of, like, is this gonna
right,
happen
yeah,
again, or if is it
yeah,
gonna actually be, this
right.
time? And it's like this, it just sits
Well,
on you like this
yeah,
heavy
I
cloud.
have a woman in the group whose son, attempted and he was in the hospital for a very long time. He did shoot himself, he just survived. 16 years later, he took his life
Mm,
for good, and, for 16 years, she waited for the other shoe to drop. She
mhm,
just watched him,
yeah,
waiting for it, and with my daughter, for the longest time, if she didn't answer the phone and she didn't
mhm,
call me back right away,
yeah,
because now I know
mhm,
that children do take their lives,
yes,
So
yeah,
how is it different with my daughter?
right.
And yeah,
And you think about, you watch, and I um try not to be, like, too detailed on the show because it goes out to everywhere, but and I don't, this, again, like, what would that do if I say, like, it's
right,
not,
of course,
so, but it is this battle where, everything we battle is spiritual. Everything is warfare, no matter what it is. I mean, it could be your daily drive, but to me, um, we don't battle against flesh and blood. The Bible tells us that we're battling principalities and all these things. So, it's and another reason, again, that I reiterate how strong my belief is, and I'm nowhere near perfect. And anytime, if you meet me in person, you'll be like, this lady does not believe in God. Yes, I do. I have a very strong relationship with
right,
Jesus. But this is what's gotten me through all these things that I've been through. And, I might say a cuss word. I'm not perfect. And that's why. That's why I need to go to church. That's why. It's because we are not. And so there's that misconception. So why I'm saying that puts me back into my personal, I battled that spiritually, not physically. I
oh
laid on the
gosh, yeah,
floor an entire night praying,
right,
like, I'm not leaving. How
right,
about that? If you do it in front of me. I'm
right,
not leaving.
right,
And
right,
get
mhm,
out of here, Satan. I mean,
right,
it's praying and praying and praying
right,
and anointing and not leave.
mhm,
And so when, I'm like, this is not between me and you. This is between me and the spirit
mhm,
in you. And I mean, I stood on that
right,
and both times was like, okay, like we're, and then you get relaxed and everybody's uh including me, prayer life slacks a little, or you don't read as much. And and not that that's the world. We're
mhm,
busy, we work, we
mhm,
have kids, we have school, we have all these things that go on. So but we forget that, or I need to say I forget that, that is my priority. And when I let that
mhm,
priority go, I realize, oh shoot, like I haven't read, I haven't prayed, like
mhm,
it's chaos.
right.
Like I
Oh,
need to get in the word more. Like I
absolutely.
need to go back to praying
Yes.
more. Like how
Right,
could I slack? Like,
right,
and that's normalcy. I'm not saying that
right,
that's bad for anybody to do, because all of us do. We live here on a
right,
busy earth that's just chaotic and crazy, and your lives, it is what it is. And I'm not saying if bad things happen because you didn't pray,
no,
that
of
is,
course not.
do not take me wrong, because that is not what I mean at all. I just feel like, you have to get that, the peace
Right,
that, comes
right,
with that you're like, okay, it's okay.
right,
All right, we're good.
right,
Like,
right,
and you have to have the word and
absolutely,
prayer, or
yeah.
you don't get that.
No, I have the luxury of being retired, and I get up at 4 every morning, and for an hour and a half, I do my readings, I say
Mm.
my prayers, I have a text dialogue with some friends who
Okay,
also do
good.
their
Yeah,
readings
nice.
and say their prayers, and that is the most meaningful
Mhm.
part of my day.
Yeah, it makes it now, sometimes I have my Christian like worship music on the way to work. And I
Oh,
just
I
said
that's
this
all I
yesterday,
listen
so
to.
that my day starts out really good and I feel
Right,
great.
me
And then on
too.
the way home, it turns into like hood rat. So I can get my venting out with like my rap music playlist, because it's like at the end of the day, I gotta like relieve the
Right,
stress.
right,
So it's not
right, right,
which
it's
I
like,
should
"Wong,
worship again.
wong,
But
wong."
I
Right,
instead I'm like,
right,
then by the time I get home, I'm like, all right, oh, that's out. I
right,
just
right.
did that in the car with music. My playlist is all over the place, and it should be just, but um, I have another statistic, and I'm gonna kind of let you close up with what you feel is important. But um, high school kids. So number one, males are at a
Mhm,
higher
yes,
rate.
we
So
noticed that in our group.
it's statistically,
Mhm,
of all those statistics and deaths I gave you, the males are way
right.
higher than any females in there. Um, that could be a whole nother conversation psychologically that I could mm, be wrong or right in. Um, but our brains truly are wired different. Doesn't mean one is better than the other. Just
Mhm,
innately, we have different emotional. I don't think I fit the female one as
mhm,
much, because we tend to be more led by emotion.
mhm,
It just that's a whole nother conversation. So, but my high school students, and it goes back to kind of reiterate the young, even 30s, 20, but in that kind of youthful age. So it's not like I'm 5 and 6, but I'm also not in my 40s. And, so that like kind of middle age, young adult is really where the highest rates are.
mhm.
And then high school is rough. Kids
Oh,
are mean.
oh,
And so who
oh,
knows and
yeah.
today it's even worse with technology, and we can sit behind a
Right,
keyboard and not be an
right,
in-person bully, because we
right,
don't want it, because we're really not tough enough to do that in
right.
person. And, so all these factors have come in more so. But for high school students, 1 in every 5, this is just US, but 1 in every 5 have considered it. 1 in every 6 have made a plan, and 1 in ten have attempted. So that's a lot of numbers of just a lot of kids that have just thought about it.
Mhm,
Okay, praise God, they didn't make the plan
mhm,
or do it. But then we have ones making a plan. So that's
mhm,
another step. And then we have 1 in 10 attempting.
mhm,
And then you've got your rate of the success of
mhm.
doing it is the third cause of death in that age group,
Right.
which is alarming.
Astounding.
And so more focus needs to be shifted on mental health in general. And just, I mean, there's so much. It's not like we can just,
Well, and get the
take away.
stigma out. I really feel that if my son could have said to his friends, I think I'm going to take my life, and
Yes.
not have them think either he was crazy or,
Yes.
right. Just
Saying
it's
it.
got to be so general that you will say that to a friend.
Like I've had those thoughts. Like
Right. Right. I even
those
made a plan. I even looked longingly at,
yes,
my mother's pills or
exactly. This 1 in 5 and 1 in 6 of any age group, doesn't matter, consider or a thought or make a plan. go talk to somebody. Like, it is okay. You're not
Right.
weird. You're not crazy. Look
Right.
at the
And you're
numbers.
not
Like,
gonna get locked up, you
no,
have to be able to talk to a guidance
go to
counselor or
somebody.
somebody.
Some adult that is
Right.
you feel even really someone you know truly loves you, like,
Right.
unconditionally.
Right.
Not everybody has the same family
Right.
that, it could be a
Right.
mom, but it could be a dad, or it might not be a parent. It might be
Right.
sister, or it might be aunt, or it might be just a good friend. It might be pastor. It might be my neighbor that I always hang out. Somebody really cares about
Right.
you. And whoever you are out there, if you think no one cares about you, that is a lie
It
straight from
is
hell,
a
and
lie.
you know it. So find that one person that cares about you, and don't let him say that to you, because even though you're saying, "Oh, nobody cares about me," that's a lie. Someone does. If not, I do. I care about all of you.
And the
So
world
message me.
And the world is not a better place
No,
without you.
it's not.
That is the biggest lie of
You
all,
matter. You
right? They'll say
matter.
that in notes,
Yes.
I know you'll be better off without me.
No.
How
How?
could you possibly think that I would be better off
No.
without
So
you?
if you think you're a burden, and I'm stressing these points, like, if you're out there and you're thinking any of these thoughts, considering it, just know, if you think you're a burden now, you're actually putting more pain on the
Yes.
person that you're thinking about. You're thinking about
Yes.
somebody like, well, she'll be better off, or he'll be better off,
Right.
or whatever. That is not the case. That's another lie, which is why you need to speak what your thoughts are, because there's people that can help you delve into those thoughts and get you through those lies, because they are
Oh,
definitely
absolutely.
lies. And if you actually tell that one person that truly cares about you, you'll hear that that's the truth, because they're going to say, and you know what? If you tell somebody and they don't, then go to the next person
Right.
and the next
Right.
person and the next person. You'll find that one person that
Right.
says, "No, you care. I care. You matter."
Right.
And I am so adamant about the fact that I am very sincere when I say that you could be across the world and I don't know you, and that's why I'm looking directly at the camera. I do care about you, whether you believe me or not, and you
Absolutely.
matter. And private message me if you are thinking anything like that. I will talk to you. I'll send you resources, somebody around you, wherever you're
Hmm.
at. I'll figure it out. I'll find it. Just please reach out to me. There is the suicide
I was
hotline.
just going to say 211
Yep.
has a completely untraceable. You
Yes.
can call and you can say you want to take your life and it's untraceable. You're safe and
Yeah,
someone will
nobody's
talk
gonna
to you.
know where you're calling from.
Right.
So there's 211, and there's the 800 number, the suicide
Okay.
hotline that you can call. That's the same.
Right.
There's 24/7, night, day, no
Right.
matter
Give
where you're
yourself a
at.
chance. Give
And
yourself a
yes,
chance.
just realize you're worthy. And but at the end of the day, I'm gonna let you kind of close with whatever you feel is the most important to end this show with,
Well, one of the things
or what you haven't got to. Go
one
ahead.
one of the things I
It's
haven't got to is there are people in my group whose child took their life with a drug overdose,
okay.
and and they say, well, that wasn't a suicide, and I just think if you put that much poison into your body, you know that you're taking your life.
Yeah.
It's just over time, and like you said, please give yourself a chance and reach out
Yes, and I'm gonna
and
put, well, I should say my producer, amazing producer John, not me. I will put on the thumbnail and some of the shorts the 1-800 number,
right.
suicide hotline at the bottom of this show for any of you that
And
may
please
want to
put my
call it.
group for anybody in
Yes,
Florida
yeah,
because I make no money out of it. People just come to
no,
my house. I have soda and water and we talk.
yes, good,
And,
nice, yeah,
you know,
absolutely. And I'll put that, and our show goes out, and if you're seeing it, then it's out already. In the comment sections and stuff, I'll remember to go on and put your group and your number,
yeah,
and then also make sure that hotline's on there. 211 is easy. 211,
yes,
211. It's like 911, but
right.
instead it's
Hmm.
private and just specifically for help that way. And any kind of thoughts. It doesn't have to be a
No,
plan of suicide. Any kind of
no,
mental
any
health
kind of trauma.
thoughts or trauma that you
Yep.
have is what 211. It's like the mental health
Hmm.
hotline, and completely free, and it's available 24/7. Same as the 1-800 hotline that specifically for suicide. So either one, but there is help out there. Even if you feel like there's nobody right there with you, then pick up the phone. But you can end it. Like I said, I talked again. I'm a talker. So
Oh, I know.
you can
I
end it
like
with
that.
whatever you want to kind of just make sure people know about you or about your son or just the topic in general? It's up to you to just end it with what's
Well,
important.
like I said, I needed some place to go to have my grief witnessed, to have it not judged, and to make meaning out of my son's life, and that's what this group is about. Very simply, there's no dues or fees. You don't have to come. Once you come once, you never have to come again. You don't have to stay the entire time, but I hope you give yourself a chance to heal because, like I said, you don't get over the pain, you don't get over the grief. Your heart and your life grow bigger, and they fit in joy and happiness. I wouldn't trade my life for any life in the world. In fact, when I got my son, if they would have said to me, "You're only going to have him for 31 years," I would have said, "Well, you just give him right to me,"
Yes.
because I'm going to let him know I love him every day
For
of
those
his
31
life,
years. And
and
that's
I did,
important.
and I don't regret that.
I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Make sure if you're out there, you let people around you know that you love them. That's important because
Absolutely, especially if
you
they
never
screwed
know.
up in any way, let them
Yeah.
know that it's
Yeah.
okay.
It's okay. Try to build that gap, pray.
Right,
It's so important to let people or make sure the people around you know, um, because you never know what they are thinking or going through. Even strangers and people, just, be kind. And I know we always have a bad day, and you could have a bad day and not, be
right.
kind, and that's okay. Start over the next day. But as long as your
Well,
intent is
that's
good and from the heart,
kindness. That's so
kindness.
important. When I was first grieving and a store clerk would be extra kind or just somebody I
It means
met,
a lot.
it healed my heart. I'm always
Yeah.
being nice to. In fact, somebody had a lot of Halloween decorations, and I stopped and got out of the car and said, "Thank you very much for making it so much nicer."
Yeah.
We
Anything.
have to be
Yeah.
kind.
Just
We
a
don't
little
have to be.
kind.
It's a
I
good
say
thing.
just to
It's a
people
good thing to be
sometimes,
kind.
I let them know just a smile. You never
Yes.
know that your smile or, oh, thank you,
Right.
or holding in the door could do to that one person
Hmm.
that is having a really bad day.
Right.
Or I've heard stories of people who have planned out suicides and they're ready, and one person made a
Right.
difference that day.
Absolutely.
And so,
Yes.
and changed the whole
Right.
trajectory of
Mhm.
especially the ones that felt like nobody around them cared and things like that. So it's so important. And there's times I'm not. We're all human and not perfect. There's times that I might be rude or impatient, but I try. I wake up every day and at least try and make
Mhm.
a thought, and I pray before I get out of bed, like, help me, because you can't do it on your own. There's times that there's ways that I've behaved and acted that there's no way I could have been that nice or good in that circumstance without God, because the real me
Oh,
would have
well, right.
lost it.
Right. I always say, if I can't love you with my love, I will love you with God's love.
Right. Well, I mean, and it's okay to love people from afar too, and
Yeah.
people have to learn
Yeah.
that.
Right.
So we could have
But
a
I want
lot
to
of
thank you.
conversations from this one because it's so much. But I really, really thank you for
Well,
coming
and I
on.
thank you for these podcasts. I've been listening to them and I really enjoy
Oh,
them.
good.
And
They're just
there's a
like,
place for them. There's a need for them.
well, I'm glad you came on because there's definitely a need for you and your group, and I
Thank you.
appreciate what you're doing. Thanks for coming
Okay,
very
thank you.
much. Ha-
And thank you to the
Yeah, John.
producer for
Yeah. We don't get
such
to
a
talk about
lovely,
John a lot, and he's
right?
great. Yeah, he just hides behind
He
the
looks like
camera,
a
but
sweetheart.
he is. So, again, thank you everyone for watching. If you're seeing this and know of anyone or have anything in
Mm,
mind, just share, like, follow, especially this show and topic. Even if maybe it's not you and you've never even had this thought, share, because someone that you don't realize is having a thought like this may see it and it could help. And if we can help just one, it's
mhm.
worth it. So thanks again. And we'll see you on the next show and next episode. As always, be blessed.